We also see that it has some kind of a naive art aspect, which it doesn't pay attention to proportions or perspective, and we may think that that's because they didn't get enough training, but actually it's because this worldview, an animistic worldview, a worldview that is populated, in which the soul is all present. It is aperspectival. There's no need for perspective because we are not focusing on a single idea as we do with our current modern Christian technological worldview. Here's another example. As you can see, all these many beings spread through the painting. The multiplicity, the polytheistic, animistic way of approaching things. That's tending the soul. Each one of these spirits, be it that snake, or demon, or fairies, they all have their place. They all belong. Which, again, just to, make the comparison between these two images, how perspective and, the center figure, the human shape, belongs here. So I'll leave you with some alchemical gems, just, for us to meditate. All that glitters is not gold. And there's another version of that would say, your gold is not our gold. Another one from Jaber, Islamic alchemist from the 6th century, I believe. Because their brain, replete with many fumosities, cannot receive the true intention of natural things. And it is cast out upon the dunghill as a vile thing, and is hidden from the eyes or understanding of ignorant men. He's talking about the philosopher's stone. And we can make a parallel with psychedelics here. And finally, I bring you with an image that I think is very alchemical about the preparation of ayahuasca in the jungle. The container and just welcoming the presence of all these different beings, all the fragments that we refuse to hold as ours, we refuse to own, is a part of a process, the alchemical process that begins, with the dirt. It begins with lead. In order for us to reach gold, we have to start with lead. And thank you very much. If you get interested in my ideas, I'm directing and producing a film. You can go and visit it either in plantandoconsciencia.org/medicina or in vimeo.com/medicinafilm/sample. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. So I guess we get to respond to ERIE and entheogen now, right? So it's actually interesting because this is a topic that we discussed a lot. And one of the things I noticed is a lot of people refer to entheogen as seeking a God or I am God kind of presence. And one thing that we really discussed a lot was it was more of source or soul, like you're speaking of with psyche, the creative source, the source of energy, our sort of source. That doesn't necessarily mean that I am God, but it's our connection to the greater divine being.
Definitely.
So that was sort of the conversation we had around the use of entheogen. And then just to go to the other side where you brought the ERIE in, this is actually another part of the conversation we had, which was how do we sort of elicit the sense of mystery, the sense of unknown, the sense of underground, the sense of potential shadow. Mm-hmm. What types of way can we balance entheogen with another word that works so you get that both sides of it? So all of these conversations you're talking about were great because this is all how we came about our name in the first place.
That's great.
It's really a beautiful process to see you go through that.
Amazing. What I'm suggesting is that through psychologizing what we are seeing, trying to see through, we get in touch with the archetypes that are informing these paintings. It's not, it's not intentional. It's not conscious sometimes. The artist, of course, is just channeling. He's channeling, an impulse, an energy, an idea. He's channeling beings, or he's channeling a whole paradigm and a culture. And that's what's in the air. It's like the morphic fields, or the whole earth. The anima mundi, right? Anima mundi, again, we have the soul here. It's the soul of the world. So these images, they reflect these movements of the soul. So I am psychologizing, I'm not literalizing, which would be a complete different thing, and I would refuse to do so. So we cannot hold these things, in a literal manner, saying, okay, so this is what it is. We have just to sit with the mystery, like you said, and just contemplate these images and understand what they are talking to us. What do they speak when I look at these images? So this was my own process of psychologizing all that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful talk. My question is touching on the idea that in order for there to be integration, there needs to be fragmentation. And there's been a lot of discussion about how in Western culture there's a huge need for integration because it's not inherently part of our culture. So my question is for cultures where integration is just naturally part of their culture, whether or not there's the same degree of fragmentation happening with these experiences.
I didn't get the question.
So in entheogenic cultures and cultures where people, various ayahuasca cultures or other traditions, because integration is so naturally part of their culture, it's not something they have to be proactive about like we need to in Western culture. Whether or not with these experiences there's the same degree of fragmentation happening. I think if it's as extreme.
I think there is fragmentation happening, but fragmentation is not is not seen as a bad thing. It's just part of the movement, and they deal with it as we have to deal with night and day, right? We can't have just day. Imagine, I would love to know how people feel in Norway when it's like, in the summer when the sun never sets and people start getting crazy, because we need to balance. We need both light and darkness. And we have to remember also that, the stronger the light, the darker is the shadow. We can do the experiment. You can do the experiment yourself just by walking to the street in a bright sunny day and look how your shadow becomes darker when the sun is really powerful. So they have their own practices. That's what ritual is all about. Ritual is about, allowing these energies to flow. So if they, I just did a workshop with Sabon Fusome last weekend about grieving. And the whole idea is that if you are grieving, the whole community is grieving because we are picking from you. So everybody joins and grieve together. And by doing that ritual and allowing the energy to flow, and people were screaming and yelling and kicking the floor and crying, and I was drooling. I mean, it was really powerful, and it was very healing because we owned, our fragmentation. We accepted that. People were saying, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." It was really powerful. And I think that's part of the process. By doing ritual, we kind of restoring the balance. So it's an ongoing search for balance. I think that's what shamanism is all about. Balance is always gonna, we're always gonna lose balance. But then we have all these practices and we bring it back together, and we're in this eternal stage of, just like going with the flow.
My question is in line with that. Just when you showed all the different definitions, of the medicines. Yeah. And I always found myself trying to pick one of my favorite, and I found myself going back and forth over time. And I thought, in order to stay honest with not doing a reductionism at all, I said, what if I let all these definitions be there? And then I started feeling that different people are going to need to relate to any one of those definitions at a different time of their journey, to kind of feel it out, because it is mind manifesting. It is all those things, And you start to look at the puzzle then, and that's, I think, what you're trying to do is to give a perspective.
Well, I would say that it is mind manifesting, but
not that one in particular. I mean, I'm saying all of them have their own definition.
I think Huxley was he was really close. I mean, he really, when it all began, they were aware of these things. And his idea of mind at large, right, and that the brain is a reducing valve. It's not really, and it's really interesting because I learned that yesterday during the talk that we had here, the inaugural talk for the Psychedelic Center at CIS. Some results of the psilocybin experiments shown that under psilocybin the brain activity was reduced and not amplified. It's the opposite of what we would expect. So it's reducing brain activity and allowing us to connect through other means. It's a cardionosis, Everybody who does an experiment on yeah.
stimulated or underactive.
Yeah. No, I think that all definitions are speaking something. They're speaking something important that needs to be tended. We need to focus on all that. But as I said, words, they are powers. When you give something a name, you're kind of empowering that God in some way. So we just have to learn how to navigate those gods, and I accept all of them. Like I said, I'm coming here with a trickster spirit, right? Learning to navigate through all these definitions without sticking to any particular one.
So, thank you. Very activating, and probably because it's dovetailing with some of my own research, which is on the intimate relationship between humans and spirit entities. And what I'm taking away, or what I'm tracking in what you're talking about, is what I feel is in the West here the humanocentric worldview, and also this this way in which we live in a disenchanted universe. And throughout the evening, we've heard almost every person touch on the idea of allies or alliances with non-human beings and entities. So I'm wondering, and that's what I feel coming out of what you're talking about as well, right? Moving ourselves out of the center and into the story, and or the relationality. And so I'm wondering, what are ways that you see we as Westerners we can do this? I mean, clearly working with psychedelics is one way that comes through. What are some other ways that we can re-enchant the world that we live in?
I would say that, ultimately psychedelics are tools of negotiation. And that if we approach them in this way, we understand that there are plenty of beings that want to have conversations with us. So that's the beginning. But if we focus on psychedelics alone, thinking that they're going to solve our problems, we're missing a great chunk here, right? And so there are, I think it's really important for us to engage our imaginations. And that's what we have to do. And there's plenty of other techniques that can help us reclaim our souls back. One of them that I've been studying lately is astrology. It's an amazing way of holding polarities or being with paradox, because every archetype, every planet, they can be one or another thing. We can't really, reduce them to one meaning. So every kind of alchemy that I suggested is another one. Archetypal psychology, especially, James Hillman. All these are attempts to approach the world through this, through a soul view of the world. We don't even have a word for that, right? We can say spiritual, but we don't have a word that can be applied for soul. So much it has been cast away from our understanding of what spiritual is. So I think that we have to first reclaim the soul. Say, okay, we are souls. The soul is the mediator between the heavens and the earth. So that's where we are, and that's myths, storytelling, fairy tales, they all have, they all can help us in this journey to better understand ourselves and to better understand this relational process. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Well, one more quick question over here. We're kind of in the West and we're kind of talking about these things in English. Does Portuguese or Brazilian Portuguese have better ways of terming these things? Is there a better sort of like understanding of some of these states due to some of the traditions there, that there are better concepts in the language, or?
I don't know. I haven't given enough thought to that. But what I notice is when I hear some songs that were received by people, from Santo Daime tradition. There are plenty of these songs that have become popular and are being played all over the world. And by understanding Portuguese, I can follow the lyrics, and the lyrics are very, very, very simple. They have there are 2 or 3 sentences that just are repeated. And if you just approach them with your mind, they say, okay, this is I got it. But when you are, under the appropriate setting and in the entheogenic state and in ritual, these words resonate with such, they just start getting unpacked with all these multiple meanings, and they become so profound. And I think that can be achieved in English as well. It's just, how we tend to language as a whole. And if, in the end, if language fails, we have song, right? Nobody, when you're listening to Icaro or some kind of melody like that, you're never going to stop the person and say, what did you mean with that? You just understand, right?
I was really impressed with either what you said or what I thought you said, or interpret. But, about the power of the words and the attitudes, and I really love that. First, I had a lot of resistance to your saying go from gold to silver, and yet reflecting as much as we can of the divine or something really does resonate with my experiences of, psychedelics, for instance. And so my question is then, is there, with the power of words and all that, I'm swimming around, is there an impeccable way to approach a psychedelic experience or any kind of deep experience that would be the most beneficial, and open the most doors to the highest states, based on all those powers and all that, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I believe that ritual is the most appropriate way. I mean, traditional way, and it doesn't have to be. We can follow ritual. In verbatim translation. It's not just like, okay, let's study how ritual is done and translate it, or the whole discussion about cultural appropriation. It's not about that. Ritual, like Malidoma Soma says, it is a knowledge of our bones. So once we engage in that, these techniques, they just open us up to having this kind of relationship, which is completely different than doing your individual journey. So I really believe that ceremony has a lot in there.
Do you view psychedelics as technology? Because you kind of went down this road of saying that psychedelics have been technologized. But do you actually view them as a type of technology? And if you don't, how do you think about them in relation to things that we traditionally talk about as being technology?
I would say that if I said that I view psychedelics as technology, I'm already part of that field, right? I'm entering that archetype. And I'm trying to avoid being an advocate for that archetype right now. I'm trying to navigate in different directions just to play the trickster here. So, like I said, all these definitions or all these correlations we're trying to make, they only tell us about ourselves and not about psychedelics. I think in the end, they remain like the mystery. And the whole point is that mysteries are not supposed to be solved. They're just supposed to be appreciated.
We can't stop on a better note than that. Thank you very much, Marcelo. Thank you, everyone.